The Galactic Council, a body of the galaxy's most influential and advanced civilizations, had always regarded humanity as little more than an afterthought. To the Council, humans were a minor nuisance, a species that had developed quickly but lacked the sophistication and wisdom the Council believed defined true power. They were loud, unpredictable, and technologically behind. Yet, as humanity continued to grow, rumors spread of their stubborn independence and refusal to conform. The Council saw this as a potential threat to their established order and decided it was time to bring Earth into the fold, to ensure compliance before any rebellion could take root. As they convened, Council members discussed Earth with a smug certainty, convinced that humanity would fold without question. These lesser beings, they reasoned, were easily manipulated. A few well-placed threats, a show of military might, and Earth would fall in line, just as other civilizations had before. The Council's emissaries, an intimidating mix of powerful species, were dispatched to Earth. They expected an easy task: lay out terms of submission, demand allegiance, and begin integrating humanity into the Council's laws and norms. It would be, they thought, a matter of mere hours. Arriving on Earth, the Council's ambassadors expected to be met with fear or awe. Instead, they encountered something entirely unexpected. Humanity's representatives listened calmly, almost too calmly, as the terms were presented. There was no outburst, no visible anger, no attempts to negotiate. Earth's leaders simply nodded, accepting the Council's demands with an unsettling level of composure. This response threw the ambassadors off balance, though they tried to hide it. After all, they reasoned, perhaps humans were simply too frightened to protest openly. The ambassadors took this quiet acceptance as proof of submission, a sign that the Council's might had cowed Earth into compliance. As the ambassadors prepared to leave, a few of them whispered among themselves about the odd reaction. Something felt amiss, though they couldn't quite articulate why. But they quickly dismissed their unease. After all, they had seen countless civilizations submit in similar ways. Surely humanity would prove no different. Convinced that the matter was settled, they returned to their ships, reporting to the Council that Earth's integration would proceed without complication. Humanity, they assured the Council leaders, would soon be another obedient member within the Galactic Order. Back in their seats of power, the Council leaders were already preparing to mobilize their fleet, not for war, but to oversee Earth's smooth transition. They expected a brief period of occupation to ensure compliance, after which humanity would be fully integrated into the galactic system, with Earth's resources and technologies subjugated for the Council's benefit. The Council's fleet, more a symbol of authority than a tool of destruction in this case, began to move toward Earth, prepared to enforce obedience and impose new governance. But while the Council basked in their assumed victory, a different scene was unfolding on Earth. Humanity was not intimidated, nor were they preparing to submit. Beneath the calm exterior, Earth's leaders and strategists had devised a plan, one that would capitalize on every ounce of human ingenuity, resilience, and determination. For decades, Earth had been building in secret, spurred by a history of conflict, an ingrained survival instinct, and a culture of relentless adaptation. In the shadows, they had developed a complex network of defenses, a last resort system to be activated only when every other option was exhausted. The Council, so assured of their superiority, had no idea of humanity's capacity for unconventional warfare. The first sign of humanity's defiance came just as the Council's fleet positioned itself near Earth, ready to assume its role as the overseer of humanity's peaceful transition. With meticulous precision, Earth's defense systems activated, taking the Council's forces by complete surprise. A coordinated assault struck key points across the fleet's communication network, disabling crucial nodes and plunging the fleet into a chaos they were unprepared for. The Council's commanders, accustomed to rigid, formal warfare, struggled to respond. They were used to facing foes who fell quickly under the Council's structured approach, not a species that improvised with every move. Humanity had turned its very nature, resourcefulness, adaptability, and unorthodox strategy, into its greatest weapon. Attacks came in waves, not with overwhelming firepower, but with precision and cunning, each strike chipping away at the Council's confidence and cohesion. As reports of unexpected losses began to pour in, the Council's leaders found themselves questioning what they thought they knew about humanity. This was not the easy integration they had anticipated. Earth's forces operated with a relentless drive, using tactics the Council considered primitive yet disturbingly effective. Human forces hacked Council drones, disabled navigation systems, and disrupted lines of supply, all while using technology the Council deemed outdated. Yet, despite this supposed technological inferiority, humanity was prevailing in ways that left the Council's forces baffled and unsettled. In the Council's capital, the initial confidence was beginning to waver. The reports were almost unbelievable. How could a species they dismissed as inferior be capable of this level of resistance? For the first time, whispers of doubt began to circulate among the Council's leaders. They had always believed in their doctrine of order, in the idea that their strength lay in their unity and control over weaker civilizations. Yet here was a minor species, defying them with a ferocity and ingenuity that seemed almost unnatural. Despite their initial arrogance, a sense of unease began to permeate the Council's ranks. As the Council's fleet settled into position around Earth, confident in its role as the guardian of a soon-to-be subjugated planet, humanity struck with a precision and aggression that left the Council reeling. In an instant, the human forces launched a devastating series of attacks, targeting key Council ships, communication nodes, and strategic points within the fleet. These assaults weren't grandiose or overwhelming in scale, but they were carefully orchestrated, each move calculated to dismantle the Council's coordination and control. Council commanders, trained in formalized combat and accustomed to fighting predictable adversaries, found themselves at a loss. Their forces were structured, regimented, and ill-equipped to counter the unconventional, rapid, and ruthlessly efficient tactics humanity employed. Human ships, although smaller and technologically less advanced by the Council's standards, exploited every weakness, every gap in the Council's defenses. It wasn't brute force that won the day, it was cleverness, adaptability, and an unwavering resolve. The fleet's communication systems, built with safeguards the Council believed impenetrable, were suddenly compromised. Hacked by human cyber units, messages were scrambled, giving rise to confusion and hesitation across the ranks. Human forces began intercepting Council signals, relaying false commands to further disorient the fleet. Unable to communicate effectively, Council ships found themselves isolated, left to fend off ambushes alone, while human strike teams picked them off one by one. Humanity's guerrilla tactics were as relentless as they were unorthodox. Council forces were bombarded with hit-and-run maneuvers, ambushes, and tactics designed to disrupt and harass rather than engage in full-scale combat. Small human ships darted in and out of the Council's formations, taking advantage of every blind spot and vulnerability. Missiles were launched from hidden ground installations, debris fields were weaponized to trap unwary ships, and every human vessel became a potential hazard, wielding technology that shouldn't have been this effective. These seemingly improvised weapons, powered by decades of black market tech and hastily adapted military-grade hardware, tore through the Council's formations in ways they hadn't thought possible. Council commanders watched in disbelief as their tactics were rendered useless, their forces dismantled by a foe that defied all expectations. The humans seemed to be everywhere, operating with an efficiency that belied their supposed inferiority. Their attacks were like a continuous pulse, unpredictable and unstoppable, each strike chipping away at the Council's morale. Attempts to regroup or mount counter-offensives were met with more ambushes, with human forces adapting to each new strategy faster than the Council could adjust. Desperation set in as Council leaders realized that the humans were not only capable of understanding Council technology, but were actively re-engineering it in real time. The humans captured Council weaponry and turned it against them, repurposing everything from energy shields to propulsion systems in ways the Council had never anticipated. Council tech, thought to be impenetrable, was now in the hands of an enemy that didn't hesitate to use it to brutal effect. Ships that had once been the pride of the Council's fleet found themselves fighting against their own technology, hacked and rigged by human engineers who seemed to thrive on the chaos. The Council had come expecting obedience and submission, but instead, they found themselves facing a species that fought with the intensity of survivalists, refusing to bow even under superior firepower. Humanity's tactics grew bolder with each victory, pushing the Council's forces further back, dismantling their pride and authority one skirmish at a time. In this war, humans showed an unyielding ferocity, a raw creativity in battle that had long been stamped out in the rigid hierarchies of the Council's own militaries. With every defeat, the Council's doubt deepened. How could a species they deemed insignificant, technologically backward, and inexperienced in galactic warfare possibly be achieving these victories? Each loss was a slap to the Council's sense of superiority, a humbling reminder that their understanding of power and control might be flawed. Humanity's resilience and tenacity defied every expectation, turning what was supposed to be a straightforward operation into an unmitigated disaster for the Council's reputation and morale. Reports of defeat filtered back to the Council's capital, painting a bleak picture of what was supposed to be a minor conflict. Council leaders who had never before questioned their superiority now grappled with a growing realization: they had underestimated humanity, not just as a military force, but as a species capable of harnessing every resource, every scrap of technology, to protect what was theirs. Humanity's willingness to adapt, to learn, and to use every available asset, even Council technology itself, revealed an enemy that was not only formidable but frighteningly innovative. Meanwhile, humanity's resolve only strengthened with each encounter. They were not just defending their planet, they were defending their freedom, their right to exist on their own terms. The Council, used to enforcing compliance with little resistance, found itself ensnared in a conflict that was far from the controlled, predictable warfare it had known. This wasn't just a fight for territorial control, it was a clash of ideologies, and humanity fought as if every life depended on their victory. The Council's fleet, once a symbol of unassailable might, now found itself battered and struggling, its morale eroded by a foe that refused to yield. Human forces operated with a level of aggression and cunning that the Council's rigid tactics could not match. Humanity had not only risen to the challenge, but had turned the conflict into a battle of attrition, one that exposed the Council's vulnerability and shattered their illusion of invincibility. The relentless assault from humanity took a toll on more than just the Council's fleet. It was a psychological blow, one that shook the Council's belief in its own dominance. Council commanders, long accustomed to the predictable patterns of subjugated worlds, found themselves unnerved by humanity's tactics and, more disturbingly, by the philosophy that seemed to drive them. Every Council officer who survived an encounter reported the same sentiment. Humans fought as though they had nothing to lose, as if they were willing to go to unimaginable lengths to preserve their autonomy. The Council had expected fear and compliance, but what they encountered was something darker, a form of resolve that bordered on ruthless ingenuity. Humanity didn't just meet the Council's aggression with resistance, they met it with calculated ferocity, taking every lesson learned and using it to craft new, unpredictable tactics. Weapons and strategies that the Council would have considered unspeakable, electromagnetic pulses to shut down life support systems, remotely hijacked drones used as kinetic weapons, fields of debris weaponized into deadly traps, were now standard in humanity's playbook. Humanity's resourcefulness had a chilling edge, one that spoke of a survival instinct refined over centuries of conflict and strife. The Council watched as humans repurposed every piece of salvage tech, refining their defenses with a horrifying efficiency. Every piece of debris, every downed Council ship, was scavenged, retrofitted, and reincorporated into the humans' evolving arsenal. Nothing was wasted. Their approach was mercilessly practical, almost as if they had perfected the art of war by embracing every possible advantage, no matter how unconventional. This unyielding adaptation didn't just show tactical intelligence, it revealed something far more troubling. Humanity was willing to weaponize everything, even concepts the Council had long abandoned as barbaric. They had breached the unspoken rules of combat, displaying a willingness to fight with what could only be described as calculated brutality. In human eyes, it wasn't about honor, codes, or traditional warfare. It was about survival, and survival alone. The Council's sophisticated doctrines of combat, meant to ensure order and minimize chaos, were simply barriers humanity had no patience for. Humanity's improvised weaponry took on a frighteningly creative form. In one instance, they set up a series of EMP fields that targeted Council ships' navigation and shield systems, effectively disabling entire fleets before striking with precision attacks. In another, they created artificial wormholes using modified Council technology, bending space to trap Council ships in lethal orbits. They hacked into Council frequencies, listening in, anticipating every move, and deploying countermeasures before the Council even knew they'd been compromised. Humanity turned every battle into a test of resilience, a test the Council increasingly realized they were ill-prepared to pass. The cumulative effect of humanity's relentless resistance left an indelible impression on the Council's leadership. For the first time, seasoned Council commanders faced the reality that Earth was no ordinary world, and humans were not a simple species to be subdued. Humanity's brutal methods highlighted a horrifying truth: they were willing to do whatever it took, no matter the cost, to protect their autonomy. And that resolve went beyond mere tactics. It revealed a cultural resilience, an unbreakable commitment to defy any force that sought to limit their freedom. Back at the Council's capital, these reports of humanity's unorthodox tactics caused unrest among high-ranking officials. Whispers of doubt echoed through the halls of power, voices questioning the validity of pursuing Earth's submission. Every Council representative who had once argued for humanity's integration now faced a gnawing uncertainty. Was this species truly worth the risk? Humanity's survival-driven resolve exposed cracks in the Council's ideology, forcing some to reconsider the wisdom of attempting to govern a species that refused to be governed. The unsettling reports continued, each one deepening the Council's unease. Humanity's ability to reverse engineer and enhance Council technologies left the Council's forces fighting against weapons that had been their own a mere week before. Human engineers stripped every captured ship down to its components, learning, adapting, and enhancing at a rate that alarmed even the most experienced Council tacticians. What had once been the Council's exclusive technological advantage was now being wielded by humanity, and to devastating effect. For every loss, humanity grew stronger, as if the conflict itself was feeding their capacity to fight back. Each failed invasion attempt only refined their tactics. This resilience in the face of overwhelming odds marked humanity as a species that could not be intimidated or subdued through conventional means. They used every resource at their disposal, every piece of knowledge they could salvage, demonstrating an adaptability that bordered on the terrifying. The Council found itself grappling with an enemy that operated on an entirely different philosophical plane. Humanity did not abide by the Council's codes of warfare or the unwritten rules that govern most galactic conflicts. Instead, they took each challenge and adapted to it, learning and evolving faster than the Council's forces could adjust. Humanity fought without restraint, their brutal creativity fueled by a sense of survivalism that the Council could not understand, much less match. As the battles raged on, humanity's tactics became a legend in themselves. Council commanders whispered tales of human ingenuity and relentless drive, their words tinged with a mixture of awe and fear. Even those who had initially dismissed humanity as a nuisance now recognized that Earth's defenders were unlike any adversary they'd faced. Humanity had demonstrated a dark, unflinching resolve that no amount of Council authority could suppress. In the end, humanity's brutal creativity and relentless resilience turned the Council's greatest strengths into weaknesses, exposing the rigid structures and predictable tactics that had once seemed invincible. Humanity had not just defended their world, they had fundamentally challenged the Council's understanding of warfare, power, and survival. This was more than a resistance. It was an assertion of humanity's right to exist on their own terms, unyielding and indomitable in the face of any force that dared to try otherwise. As the Council's fleet regrouped for one final, all-out assault on Earth, they steeled themselves, determined to crush the defiance that had humiliated them time and again. They deployed every available warship, pulled in reinforcements from distant sectors, and gathered their most advanced weaponry. The Council's leaders, desperate to restore their authority, spared no effort or resource, preparing to overwhelm Earth with sheer numbers and firepower. This, they believed, would finally subdue humanity and remind the galaxy of the Council's might. But humanity was waiting, ready with defenses that far surpassed anything the Council had seen before. Earth's forces had prepared for this very moment, setting the ultimate trap. As the Council's ships advanced, they were met not by a defensive wall but by a maze of deadly traps, strategic pitfalls, and advanced countermeasures that humanity had designed specifically to ensnare the Council's forces. Fields of debris, seeded with electromagnetic disruptors, ensnared the first waves of Council ships, disabling their shields and leaving them vulnerable. Artificial wormholes, strategically placed, pulled ships off course, diverting them into collision paths with their own forces. For every move the Council made, humanity had a counter ready, each one more devastating than the last. EMP pulses struck from hidden sources, wiping out entire swaths of ships in seconds. Virus-laden signals hacked into the Council's weapon systems, turning their own firepower against them. Council commanders, disoriented and cut off from their formations, watched in horror as their fleets fractured under humanity's unrelenting onslaught. This wasn't just defense. It was a carefully crafted dismantling of the Council's forces, executed with precision and merciless intent. Humanity had become the very nightmare the Council had never anticipated, each move calculated to ensure the Council's forces could neither regroup nor retreat without sustaining catastrophic losses. Every escape route was covered, every tactical retreat anticipated, as if Earth's forces had mapped out each possible response. With each passing minute, the Council's fleet was torn apart, ship by ship, as humanity's brutal ingenuity continued to outmaneuver and overwhelm the Council's best strategies. As Council fleets faltered, their commanders began to realize the depth of their mistake. The superiority they had taken for granted was not enough. Humanity had proven that their resilience and refusal to yield were forces even the Council's mighty armada couldn't counter. Panic set in among the Council's ranks as they saw firsthand the extent of humanity's defensive measures. Every attempt to regain control only led to further chaos, each maneuver met with an immediate and devastating response. The Council's forces, once confident and unassailable, now reeled under the relentless precision of humanity's strikes. In desperation, the Council leaders, watching from their distant capital, gave the order to retreat. It was a bitter command, one that they had never expected to give, and one that would haunt them. Their proud armada, assembled to conquer a supposedly inferior species, limped away from Earth, battered and broken. They left behind wreckage, lost lives, and a reputation now tarnished with the stain of an unexpected defeat. The Council's authority, which had once commanded respect and fear across the galaxy, was now undercut by humanity's unyielding resolve and brutal tactics. Word of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy, reaching distant civilizations that had long lived under the Council's shadow. The tales spoke of Earth's fearless defenders, a species that had taken the Council's might and used it against them with ruthless efficiency. Stories of humanity's daring strategies and merciless defenses became the talk of distant worlds, whispered in awe and caution. No longer were humans seen as minor players. They were a force capable of resisting the galaxy's most formidable power, a species that had turned survival into an art of unbreakable defense. For the Council, the defeat was more than a loss. It was a revelation that they could no longer ignore. Humanity's tactics had exposed the Council's vulnerabilities, revealing a rigid system that could not adapt as quickly or think as creatively as their new adversaries. The Council's leaders were forced to confront the fact that they had severely underestimated humanity, both in capability and in resolve. Earth had defied the Council's vision of order, proving that even the most advanced empire could be brought to its knees by those with the will to fight and the creativity to turn every disadvantage into a weapon. In the aftermath, the Council faced not only the humiliation of defeat, but also a profound shift in their own political structure. The defeat at Earth sparked debates among Council members about the future of their approach to governance and control. If humanity, a species they had dismissed, could turn their methods of domination against them, then what other vulnerabilities lay hidden in the Council's overconfident regime? The Council's once unquestioned authority was now shadowed by doubt and fear of what other uprisings might emerge in the wake of humanity's defiance. For Earth, the victory became a foundation for their new standing in the galaxy. They were no longer seen as an isolated, minor world on the fringes of galactic civilization. Earth had gained the galaxy's respect and its caution, its name now synonymous with resilience, ingenuity, and the brutal effectiveness of a species that refused to bow. Humans were now recognized as a power capable of defending their own, shrouded in an aura of hard-won authority. In time, Earth's story became a legend, passed from world to world, each retelling capturing the spirit of humanity's stand against the Council's might. The galaxy learned to regard humanity not with the derision they once had, but with a newfound respect and wariness. The Council, once unquestioned in their strength, found their influence tempered by the possibility of resistance, and the seeds of doubt sown by humanity's victory began to reshape the very fabric of galactic politics. Humanity had secured its place in the galaxy, not by submission, not by alliance, but by a display of strength that defied all odds. In the end, Earth's defenders had accomplished what many deemed impossible. They had not only survived against an empire but had done so on their own terms, proving to the galaxy that some species could never be conquered. And in the Council's halls, the reminder of their defeat lingered, a cautionary tale of what awaited any who underestimated Earth and its ruthless defenders.